I only stopped at the pharmacy that Tuesday afternoon because I was running low on my cholesterol medication. It was supposed to take 5 minutes. But when Harriet Beaumont, my late wife's dearest friend, appeared from behind the counter and pulled me aside with trembling hands, I knew something was terribly wrong. "Walter, your son-in-law was at the jewelry store last week," she whispered. "He bought an engagement ring, and it wasn't for Nora." My heart stopped. That was the moment my quiet retirement ended and the fight to save my daughter began. Welcome, everyone. Before we continue, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments where you are watching from. A quick note: this is a fictional story with dramatized elements. The names and details are imaginary, but the message behind it carries a deeper meaning. Now, what exactly did my old friend tell me that day at the pharmacy? Let us find out. I never thought a routine trip to pick up medication would become the moment that shattered everything I believed about my daughter's marriage. But life has a way of pulling the ground out from under you when you least expect it. The Publix pharmacy on Abercorn Street had been part of my routine for almost 3 years, ever since my doctor put me on cholesterol medication. Every month I would drive down from my house in Ardsley Park, hand over my prescription card, wait 15 minutes, and head home. Nothing eventful. Just another errand in the quiet rhythm of a retired man's life. My name is Walter Briggs. I am 62 years old. I spent 31 years with the Savannah Fire Department, the last 8 as captain. My wife Elaine passed away 2 years ago from a stroke that came without warning on a Sunday morning in March. One moment she was arranging magnolia blossoms in a glass vase, humming a hymn she had loved since childhood. The next moment she was on the floor, and nothing I had learned in 3 decades of saving lives could bring her back. That Tuesday, the October air was still warm but carried the faintest hint of cooler days ahead. Spanish moss hung from the live oaks along Abercorn Street, like curtains of pale green lace. I parked my truck, walked inside, and handed my card to the technician at the counter. She told me 15 minutes. I wandered toward the greeting card aisle to kill time, and was flipping through a card when I heard a voice behind me. "Walter Briggs. Is that really you?" I turned around and the breath caught in my throat. Harriet Beaumont stood there, wearing a white pharmacy coat, with the Publix logo above the pocket. Her silver hair was pulled back neatly, her reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. She looked thinner than I remembered, but the warmth in her face was exactly the same. Harriet had been Elaine's closest friend for over 30 years. When Elaine died, Harriet sat beside me in the front pew and held my hand through the entire funeral without saying a single word, because she knew no words would be enough. About 2 years ago, she moved to Hilton Head to be closer to her son. We had not spoken since. "Harriet," I said, "I had no idea you were back in Savannah." She smiled tiredly. "Started here about 4 months ago. Part-time. My son's wife got transferred, so I came back." She touched my arm. "How is Nora?" "She is doing well. Working hard at Memorial Health. Still married to Ethan." Something shifted in her face the moment I said his name. Her smile tightened. Her eyes darted toward the front of the store and back. If I had not spent 31 years reading the faces of people in crisis, I might have missed it. But I did not miss it. "Walter," she said quietly. "Do you have a minute?" She took my elbow and guided me toward the back hallway near the employee restrooms. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The hallway smelled of cardboard and cleaning solution. We were alone. "It is about Ethan," she said. My chest tightened. "What about him?" She pressed her lips together as though the words resisted leaving her mouth. Then she spoke. "Last Thursday evening, I was at the Oglethorpe Mall picking up a gift for my granddaughter. I walked past the Zales jewelry store and saw Ethan standing at the counter. He was looking at engagement rings. I frowned. Maybe he is upgrading Nora's ring. Their anniversary was in June," Harriet said quietly. 4 months ago. Maybe it is a gift for someone else. A colleague. Harriet met my eyes directly. I watched him for almost 10 minutes, Walter. He chose a solitaire diamond on a gold band. The salesperson placed it in a velvet box. He paid, put the box in his jacket pocket, and walked out. She paused. I saw the way he looked at that ring. That was not a business purchase. I have seen that look before. I saw it on your face, the day you bought Elaine her ring. The hallway seemed to narrow around me. Harriet, are you sure it was Ethan? I sat in the third row at their wedding. She said firmly, I watched that boy say his vows to your daughter. I know exactly who he is. I searched for another explanation. Maybe there is a reasonable explanation. Maybe. She said softly, I hope there is. She placed her hand on my arm. But if it were my daughter, I would want to know. A voice crackled over the intercom announcing a special on canned soup. Somewhere near the registers, a child laughed. Ordinary sounds from an ordinary afternoon, continuing as if nothing had changed. Thank you for telling me, I said quietly. Harriet squeezed my arm. I wrestled with this for a week. I almost did not say anything. But then I thought about Elaine. Her voice trembled. She would have wanted me to tell you. She would have, I said. I picked up my prescription, paid without looking at the total, and walked outside. The late afternoon sun slanted through the live oaks, casting long shadows across the parking lot. I climbed into my truck and sat there with both hands on the steering wheel, staring through the windshield at nothing. My hands were trembling. The last time they had trembled like this was the morning Elaine collapsed, and I knelt beside her, pressing my fingers to her neck, searching for a pulse I already knew was gone. Sunday was 4 days away. Nora had invited me for dinner the way she did every week. Pot pie and conversation, Ethan pouring wine with that smooth smile of his. I had always accepted those evenings at face value. A loving daughter, a polished son-in-law, a peaceful family dinner. But this Sunday would be different. This Sunday I would watch Ethan Ashford with the eyes of a man who spent 3 decades learning to see the truth behind the smoke. I pulled out of the parking lot and turned onto Abercorn Street. The live oaks lined the road like silent sentinels, their branches heavy with moss, watching everything and saying nothing. And somewhere in this city, tucked inside a jacket pocket, sat a diamond ring that was never meant for my daughter. 4 days passed slowly. I went through my routines the way I always did. Coffee at 6. A walk through Forsyth Park. Dinner alone at 5:30. But Harriet's words lived inside every quiet moment, like a low hum that would not stop. I saw the way he looked at that ring. By Sunday afternoon, I had nearly convinced myself a dozen times that there was a simple explanation, and a dozen times the knot in my stomach pulled tighter. I stopped at the florist on Bull Street before driving to Nora's house. Magnolia blossoms. I brought them every Sunday. Elaine had loved magnolias more than any other flower. She said they reminded her of resilience. Something about how such a delicate blossom could survive the heat and storms of a Georgia summer. After she passed, I started bringing them to Nora's house each week without really deciding to. It just happened, the way grief turns habits into rituals. The drive from my house to Ardsley Park took less than 10 minutes. But that afternoon, every block felt longer than usual. The live oaks arched over the road, their branches tangled overhead like the fingers of old hands clasped in prayer. Spanish moss trailed down in silver-green threads, barely stirring. Savannah moved slowly on Sundays. Church bells had finished ringing hours ago, and the streets belonged to dog walkers and couples pushing strollers. I turned onto Nora's Street and pulled into the driveway behind Ethan's silver BMW. A 2-story Victorian, with a wide wraparound porch, cream-colored siding, dark green shutters, and a front door painted the same shade of red that Elaine had chosen when she and I first bought the place 34 years ago. We raised Nora in this house. Every birthday, every Christmas morning, every scraped knee and bedtime story happened within those walls. When Elaine died, she left it to Nora in her will. It was more than a house. It was the physical shape of our family's history. I picked up the magnolia blossoms from the passenger seat and walked up the porch steps. Before I could knock, the door swung open. Dad. Nora wrapped her arms around me before I could say a word. She smelled like flour and rosemary, which meant she had been cooking for hours. She pulled back and looked at the flowers with the soft smile she always gave them. Magnolias. Mom's favorite. I know, I said. That is why I keep bringing them. She took the blossoms and pressed her face into them briefly, the way Elaine used to do. Then she stepped aside. Come in. Dinner is almost ready. I crossed the threshold and immediately began doing something I had never done before in this house. I started looking, not casually, not the way a father glances around his daughter's home to see if the curtains are new. I looked the way I used to look when I walked into a burning building, scanning for danger, reading the room for signs that something was wrong beneath the surface. The first thing I noticed sat on the entryway table. A watch box. Open, displaying a timepiece with a dark face and a polished steel bracelet. The Omega logo caught the light from the hallway chandelier. I knew that brand. A fire captain I had worked with years ago received one as a retirement gift. He told me it cost over $3,000. New watch? I asked casually, nodding toward the box. Ethan's voice came from the kitchen doorway before Nora could answer. Picked that up last month. He walked into the hallway, carrying a dish towel over one shoulder, smiling the way he always smiled. Wide, confident, perfectly calibrated. He extended his hand. Good to see you, Walter. I shook it. His grip was firm, his palm dry, not a trace of nervousness. That is a nice piece, I said, keeping my voice light. Omega Seamaster, Ethan said, lifting the watch from the box and turning it so the light played across the crystal. Treated myself after we closed the Henderson property. Biggest commission of the year. He slipped it onto his wrist with the easy satisfaction of a man who believed he deserved everything he owned. I smiled politely and followed them toward the dining room, but my eyes kept moving. In the living room, leaning against the wall beside the fireplace, stood a set of golf clubs in a sleek black bag. The Callaway logo ran down the side in silver letters. Brand new. I could see the factory plastic, still wrapped around two of the club heads. Started golfing? I asked. Ethan joined the country club, Nora said from the kitchen. There was something in her voice, not quite pride, not quite resignation. Somewhere in between. He says it is good for networking. It is, Ethan confirmed, settling into the chair at the head of the dining table. Half my deals this year started on the 9th hole. He leaned back comfortably. Walter, you should join me sometime. You would love the course out at the landings. I will think about it, I said. The dining room looked beautiful. Nora had set the table with care. Cloth napkins folded beside white plates, candles burning in the center, the magnolia blossoms already arranged in a crystal vase that had belonged to Elaine. The smell of chicken pot pie filled the house, rich and warm and familiar. It was the recipe Elaine had taught Nora the summer before she died, written out on an index card in Elaine's careful handwriting. I sat down across from Ethan and watched him pour wine into 3 glasses. His movements were smooth, practiced, effortless. He filled each glass to exactly the same level without looking, then set the bottle down and smiled across the table at Nora with an expression that seemed, from the outside, like genuine affection. But I was not looking from the outside anymore. I was looking from the inside now, from the place where Harriet's words had planted themselves and taken root. A $3,000 watch on his wrist, a set of golf clubs that cost at least $2,500, a country club membership that I knew ran somewhere around $5,000 a year, and Nora, my daughter, working 12-hour emergency room shifts at Memorial Health, coming home exhausted, cooking dinner from her dead mother's recipe because it was cheaper than eating out. Ethan raised his glass. To Sunday dinners, he said warmly. I lifted mine and touched it against his. The crystal rang softly between us, and as I looked across the table at my son-in-law, his expensive watch catching the candlelight, his easy smile never wavering. I felt something cold settle deep beneath my ribs. I was sitting across from a man I did not trust anymore. And the hardest part was that my daughter was sitting right beside him, smiling, completely unaware that anything had changed. Nora placed the pot pie on the table, steam curling from the golden crust, and for a moment the kitchen smelled exactly the way it had when Elaine was alive. She cut 3 generous portions and served them carefully, the way her mother always had, making sure every plate had an equal share of chicken, vegetables, and flaky pastry. "This looks wonderful, sweetheart," I said. "Mom's recipe," Nora replied quietly. "I still use her index card. The one she wrote out for me that last summer." I knew the card. Elaine's neat, cursive, slightly faded, with a small grease stain in the corner from the first time Nora had tried the recipe on her own. Some things carry the weight of the people who leave them behind. Ethan took a bite and nodded approvingly. "Incredible as always, babe." Then he set down his fork and leaned back with the relaxed confidence of a man settling into his favorite stage. "So, Walter, things have been moving fast at the firm. We just closed 2 estate litigation cases back to back." The senior partners noticed. "That is good to hear," I said. "Better than good," Ethan continued. "I am actually in talks to start my own practice. Real estate law, estate planning, maybe some corporate work on the side. I have been building a client list for over a year now. It is almost ready." His eyes were bright. His voice carried the smooth, rehearsed energy of someone who had pitched this vision many times before. To clients, to colleagues, probably to Nora, every time he needed her to believe the future he was painting. I turned to Nora. "How about you, sweetheart? How is work going?" She let out a slow breath. "Exhausting," she admitted. "I picked up 3 extra shifts last week, 2 night rotations, and a Saturday double. We have been short-staffed in the ER for months. You are working too hard," I said gently. "I know." She pushed a piece of carrot around her plate. "But we have had some extra expenses lately, so I wanted to help cover things." The word expenses landed differently now. "What kind of expenses?" I asked, keeping my voice casual. Nora glanced at Ethan briefly, then looked back at me. "Well, you know Ethan's student loans have been hanging over us for a while, and with the new practice coming together, there are startup costs. Filing fees, office space deposits, software licenses." She paused. "So I sent him some money a few months ago to help get things moving." "Some money," I repeated. 35,000, she said quietly. The number landed in my chest like a fist. $35,000. I knew exactly where that money had come from. Elaine's life insurance policy. When she died, the payout was split between Nora and me. Nora's share was $42,000. She had told me at the time that she was going to save it, maybe use it for a down payment on a second property someday, or put it toward retirement. It was Elaine's final gift to her daughter, earned through decades of premiums, paid faithfully every month from a modest household budget. And now $35,000 of those $42,000 had been handed to Ethan. "That is a significant amount," I said slowly, choosing each word with care. Ethan stepped in smoothly before Nora could respond. "Best investment we will ever make, Walter. This practice is going to change our lives. I have already got 3 clients ready to sign the moment I open the doors." He lifted his wine glass with easy confidence. "Within 2 years, we will not even remember what tight months felt like." I looked at his wrist. The Omega Seamaster reflected the candlelight. $3,000. I looked past him toward the living room, where the Callaway golf clubs leaned against the wall. $2,500. I thought about the country club membership Nora had mentioned. Another $5,000. At least. Tight months. That was what he called it. Tight months, while wearing $10,000 worth of luxury on his body and in his living room. Tight months while my daughter worked double shifts in an emergency room, came home at 2 in the morning smelling like antiseptic and exhaustion, and handed over her dead mother's life insurance money because her husband said he needed it. I am sure it will work out, I said. The words tasted like rust. Nora smiled, relieved. She reached across the table and squeezed Ethan's hand. We are a team, she said softly. Ethan squeezed back and kissed her knuckles. The gesture was smooth, automatic, the kind of tenderness that looked perfect from the outside. But I had been watching people perform under pressure for 31 years. And something about the way his lips touched her hand felt like a man going through motions he had memorized rather than felt. We finished eating in comfortable silence. Nora began clearing the plates, and I stood to help. But before I could reach for anything, Ethan's phone buzzed against the table. He glanced at the screen, and his expression shifted. The easy warmth vanished, replaced by something practiced and professional. I am sorry, he said, looking at Nora. That is Henderson. The estate case I told you about. There is an issue with the title transfer. Nora frowned. Tonight? Dad just got here. I know, babe. I am sorry. It should not take long. Maybe an hour. He stood up, leaned down, kissed her forehead, then grabbed his keys from the hook beside the door. He turned to me with an apologetic nod. Walter, great seeing you tonight. We will do this again soon. Before I could respond, he was already walking toward the front door. It closed behind him. A moment later, I heard the BMW start in the driveway, the smooth hum of the engine fading as he pulled away. Nora sighed. His work never stops. Seems that way, I said. She carried the plates into the kitchen, and I heard the sound of water running as she loaded the dishwasher. I stood alone in the dining room, staring at the empty chair where Ethan had been sitting. The candles were still burning. The magnolia blossoms sat in their crystal vase, white petals glowing softly in the warm light. I walked toward the back of the house to use the restroom, and as I passed the door that led to the garage, I stopped. The door was slightly ajar. Through the gap, I could see the overhead light was on, casting a harsh, fluorescent glow over the concrete floor. There, beside Ethan's workbench, stood the Callaway golf bag I had noticed earlier. But from this angle, I could see something I had missed from the living room. The price tag was still attached to the strap. $2,495. $2,495 for golf clubs. While my daughter worked night shifts to cover extra expenses, while $35,000 of her dead mother's life insurance money sat in Ethan's bank account, supposedly building a law practice that did not yet exist, I stared at that price tag until the numbers blurred. Then I closed the garage door quietly, walked back through the hallway, and sat down in the living room to wait for Nora. The candles had burned halfway down. The magnolia blossoms were beginning to release their scent into the room, sweet and heavy. And inside my chest, two numbers collided over and over like stones grinding against each other. 35,000 gone. 2,495 spent on golf clubs that still had the tag on them. Something was very wrong inside my daughter's marriage. And I could not stay silent any longer. Nora came back from the kitchen drying her hands on a dish towel. She sat down on the couch with a tired sigh, tucking her legs beneath her the way she had done since she was a little girl. The candles on the dining table were still burning, their light softening the edges of the room. I was sitting in the armchair across from her, but my eyes had drifted to the wall behind the couch. The wedding photograph. Nora in her white dress, beneath a magnolia tree in our backyard. Ethan beside her, one arm around her waist. Elaine and I to their left, Elaine's magnolia brooch pinned to her dress. Everyone looked happy. Everyone looked safe. Tonight, that photograph felt like staring at a lie someone had framed and mounted. Dad? Nora tilted her head. You okay? You have been quiet. I took a breath. The kind you take before stepping into a building you know is burning. There is something I need to tell you, I said. When I was at the pharmacy last Tuesday, I ran into Harriet Beaumont. Recognition lit her face. Miss Harriet? Mom's friend? She told me something about Ethan. I held her gaze. She saw him at Zales in the Oglethorpe Mall last Thursday, buying an engagement ring. Nora stared at me. Then she laughed, short and startled. An engagement ring? Dad, that is ridiculous. Harriet watched him for 10 minutes. She saw him choose a diamond solitaire, pay for it, and put it in his pocket. She must have been mistaken. Maybe it was someone who looked like him. Harriet sat in the third row at your wedding. She knows exactly what Ethan looks like. Nora's smile faded. Okay. Maybe he was buying something for a client. Ethan deals with estate cases. People give gifts. Your anniversary was in June, I said carefully. And Harriet said, the way he looked at that ring was not the way someone looks at a business gift. Nora sat upright. The softness in her face was hardening. So what are you saying? That my husband is buying engagement rings for other women? I am saying Harriet saw something that concerned her. And tonight, I noticed things that concern me too. An Omega watch worth $3,000. Golf clubs worth $2,500. A country club membership. All while you are working double shifts telling me money is tight. Ethan earned that money, Nora said sharply. He closed 2 major cases. And the $35,000? Your mother's life insurance? The room went quiet. The candle flames swayed in a draft neither of us could feel. That money is an investment in our future, Nora said, her voice careful and controlled. Ethan is building a practice. I made that decision willingly. It was your mother's money, I said quietly. Something flashed behind her eyes. Do not do that. Do not use Mom to make me feel guilty. I am not trying to make you feel guilty. I am trying to tell you something does not add up. Nora stood up suddenly. You know what does not add up? You. Coming into my house every Sunday, smiling at my husband, and the whole time keeping track of what he buys like you, are building a case against him. Nora, that is not what I am doing. Yes, it is. Her voice rose. You have never liked Ethan. From the very first day I brought him home, you looked at him like he was not good enough for your daughter. That is not true. It is true. Her eyes glistened. Mom saw it too. She told me once that you were too hard on him, that you needed to give him a chance. I defended you. I told her you would come around. The mention of Elaine hit me in a place I was not expecting. Nora was not finished. And now you are using gossip from a pharmacy to convince me my husband is a liar. Harriet has not spoken to us in 2 years. She does not know our marriage. She knows what she saw. She saw a man buying jewelry, Nora snapped. That is all. Everything else is your imagination. I stood slowly. Sweetheart, I am not imagining $35,000. I am not imagining the watch or the golf clubs while you work night shifts to make ends meet. Nora's face twisted with something I had never seen directed at me before. Raw, wounded fury. You want to know what I think? She said, her voice trembling. I think you are lonely. I think you have been alone in that house for 2 years and you do not know what to do with yourself, so you are looking for problems that do not exist. The words cut deep. But what came next was worse. Mom would be ashamed of you. The sentence landed like a blow to the center of my chest. I felt it physically. Elaine. The woman I had loved for 34 years. The woman whose life insurance money sat in Ethan's account. The woman whose magnolia blossoms were arranged in a crystal vase 10 feet away. Ashamed of me. Get out, Nora said quietly. Nora, get out of my house, Dad. Her voice was shaking but final. Do not call me. Do not text me. I need you to stay out of my marriage. I searched her face for some crack, some sign she did not mean it. All I found was hurt so deep. It had turned to stone. I love you, I said. She closed her eyes. A single tear slid down her cheek. Then respect my choices. I walked to the front door, opened it, and stepped onto the porch. Behind me, The door closed. Then the deadbolt turned. The sound of my daughter, locking me out of her life. The night air was cool against my face. The live oaks stood along the street in silence, their branches heavy with Spanish moss hanging motionless in the darkness. The porch light cast a pale circle around my feet. Beyond it, everything was shadow. I looked up at the Savannah sky and spoke to the only person I knew would listen. "Elaine," I whispered. "She thinks you would be ashamed of me." I swallowed hard. "Maybe you would be. I do not know. But I am not going to stop. I am not going to give up on her." My voice broke on the last word. I stood there a moment longer, letting the darkness hold me. Then I walked down the steps, past the live oaks and their silent moss, and climbed into my truck alone. The drive home took 10 minutes. It felt like it took years. I did not sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while Nora's words played on a loop inside my skull. "Mom would be ashamed of you." The sentence returned, every time silence settled, sharp and precise, finding the exact same wound each time. The house was quiet in the way only an empty house can be. The hallway clock ticked steadily, counting minutes that felt like hours. Somewhere outside, a dog barked twice and stopped. A car passed, headlights sweeping across the curtains before disappearing. I thought about Elaine, about the magnolia brooch she wore to every important occasion, about the way she used to sit at the kitchen table reading the newspaper, coffee cooling beside her elbow. She would have known how to reach Nora. Mothers and daughters share a language that fathers can only observe from the outside. But Elaine was gone, and Nora had slammed the door in my face. If something was wrong inside her marriage, no one was left to protect her except me. And I could not do it with suspicion alone. Suspicion was what got me thrown out. What I needed was proof. By 3 a.m, I gave up on sleep. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and opened my laptop. The screen cast a blue glow across my hands as I typed 2 words into the search bar: Private Investigator Savannah. Most results were generic. Stock photos of magnifying glasses and padlocks. But one listing caught my eye. Ray Castillo. Private Investigations. Former Savannah Chatham Metropolitan Police Detective. 15 years investigative experience. Specializing in infidelity, financial fraud, and background verification. The reviews were direct, thorough, discreet. Tells you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. That last line convinced me. At 8 a.m, I called. A deep voice answered on the second ring. Castillo Investigations. My name is Walter Briggs. I need help with something involving my son-in-law. Can you come to my office this morning? 9 o'clock. Drayton Street. Second floor above the bookshop. At 5 minutes to 9, I parked on Drayton Street. The building was old Savannah, red brick with iron railings and tall windows. A bookshop occupied the ground floor, its window filled with paperbacks and a sleeping tabby cat. Beside the entrance was a narrow door, leading to a wooden staircase that creaked with every step. The hallway at the top smelled of old wood and fresh coffee. The door at the end had a frosted glass panel. Castillo Investigations. I knocked. "Come in." The office was small and functional. A heavy desk near the window stacked with folders and a laptop. 2 plain chairs. Filing cabinets along the wall. No decorations. No framed awards. Just a workspace used every day. Ray Castillo stood as I entered. Around 48, dark hair graying at the temples, broad shoulders, a weathered face that carried the steadiness of someone who had spent years watching people lie. He shook my hand firmly. "Have a seat, Mr. Briggs." I sat down. He pulled a notepad closer. "Start from the beginning." So I did. I told him about Harriet at the pharmacy, the engagement ring at Zales. I told him about Sunday dinner, the Omega watch, the golf clubs, the country club. I told him about the $35,000 from Elaine's life insurance. And I told him about the argument, about Nora telling me to get out, about the deadbolt turning behind me. Ray listened without interrupting, pen moving in quick strokes. When I finished, he set the pen down. How long have they been married? 4 years. Before last week? Any suspicions? No. Ethan always seemed polished. Maybe too polished. Ray nodded. Polished is a skill, Mr. Briggs. Some people learn it to succeed. Others learn it to hide. He glanced at his notes. So we are looking at possible infidelity, possible financial manipulation, and a spouse who refuses to believe anything is wrong. That about covers it. Extremely common, he said. People protect the version of reality that hurts least. Your daughter is not stupid. She is scared. He leaned forward. Here is what I can do. Surveillance on Ethan. Documenting where he goes, who he meets, how he spends his time. Financial checks where legally possible. Identification of the woman, if there is one. How long? A week minimum. Cost? $2,000 for the first week. Surveillance. Background checks. Financial analysis. Full report with photos and documentation. After that, $1,500 per week. $2,000. I had not spent that kind of money on anything since Elaine's funeral. But when I pictured Nora's face, the anger masking fear, the certainty that I was her enemy, I knew I would pay 10 times that without hesitation. Done, I said. Ray raised an eyebrow. You do not want to think about it? No. Start today. He pulled a contract from his drawer. I signed it. Then he picked up his pen again. I will need details. Full name, vehicle, home address, workplace. I gave him everything. Ethan Ashford, 35, silver BMW, lives in Ardsley Park. Works at a law firm on Broughton Street. Then, I added one more thing. There may be a woman named Cassidy. I do not know her last name, or anything about her. But if that ring was for someone, she is the most likely person. Ray wrote the name down. Enough to start with. He closed the notebook. One more thing. If I find something, you need to be prepared for what that means. Photos. Documentation. Proof that confirms the worst. I thought about Nora. Her trust. Her stubbornness. Her certainty that I was wrong. I am prepared, I said. Then we have an agreement. I left the office and walked down the creaking staircase to the sidewalk. Drayton Street was coming alive. Tourists with coffee cups. A horse-drawn carriage on the cobblestones. Live oaks casting shadows across the pavement. Savannah looked beautiful, indifferent to whatever pain was unfolding behind its elegant doors. I climbed into my truck and sat for a moment. A week ago, hiring a private investigator to follow my son-in-law would have sounded insane. Now it felt like the only sane thing left. I started the engine. Somewhere in this city, Ethan Ashford was going about his day, wearing his expensive watch, driving his silver BMW, living whatever secret life he had built behind my daughter's back. He had no idea anyone was watching, but starting today, someone was. The first report arrived 5 hours after I left Ray's office. I was sitting at my kitchen table with a mug of coffee that had gone cold when my phone buzzed against the wood. The screen lit up with a text from an unfamiliar number. This is Castillo. First update attached. Call me when you have looked at them. My fingers were not entirely steady as I opened the message. 3 photographs were attached. The first showed Ethan's silver BMW parked along River Street near the waterfront. The timestamp in the corner read 12:47 in the afternoon. Barely 4 hours after I had signed Ray's contract. The second photograph tightened something deep inside my chest. Ethan was walking along the cobblestone riverfront beside a young woman. The Savannah River stretched behind them, gray-green and wide, a cargo ship moving slowly in the distance. The woman had long, dark hair that fell past her shoulders and was wearing a fitted jacket and boots. Ethan's arm was around her waist. She was leaning into him, her head tilted toward his shoulder, the way you lean into someone you trust completely. The third photograph made me set the phone down on the table and press both palms flat against the wood. They were sitting together on a bench, overlooking the river. The woman's hand rested on Ethan's knee. His face was turned toward hers, close enough that their foreheads nearly touched. And he was looking at her with an expression I recognized, because I had seen him give it to Nora 100 times. Soft, attentive, tender. Except this was not Nora. I picked up the phone and called Ray. He answered immediately. "Did you see them?" he asked. "Yes," I said. My voice sounded hollow. "Her name is Cassidy Lowe," Ray said. 28 years old. Works as a paralegal at a law firm on Whitaker Street. Different firm from Ethan's, but they are in the same professional circles. I closed my eyes. How long have they been together? I am still working on the exact timeline. But based on what I observed today, this is not new. The body language is too comfortable, too familiar. This is not a first date or a casual fling. They have been together for a while. What else do you know about her? Ray paused briefly. I spoke with someone who knows her socially. Casual conversation, nothing that would raise flags. According to this person, Cassidy believes Ethan is a widower. The word landed like a stone dropped into still water. A widower, I repeated. Yes. She apparently told this mutual acquaintance that Ethan lost his wife about 2 years ago. That she died, suddenly. I opened my eyes and stared at the kitchen wall. My daughter was alive. She was working 12-hour shifts in an emergency room, coming home exhausted, cooking her dead mother's recipes, handing over her inheritance to a man who told strangers she no longer existed. He told Cassidy that Nora is dead. I said quietly, "That appears to be the case." The silence that followed was the loudest I had ever experienced. I could hear the clock ticking in the hallway. I could hear my own heartbeat, pushing blood through my temples. And beneath those sounds, I could hear something cracking. Some last piece of hope that maybe Harriet had been wrong. Maybe there was an innocent explanation. Maybe my son-in-law was not the man I was beginning to understand he was. That piece broke cleanly and completely. "Castillo," I said. "What kind of person tells a woman his wife is dead while his wife is at home waiting for him?" Ray's voice was measured. "The kind of person who has done this before, Mr. Briggs. In my experience, men who construct elaborate lies like this are not amateurs. They have practice." I let that settle. Then I asked, "What happens next?" I keep following him. Today was day 1. If there is a pattern, I will document it. Restaurants, hotels, spending habits. If he is using your daughter's money on this woman, I will find the trail. "Do that," I said. "One more thing," Ray added. "The way he held her today, the way they moved together. This is not a man sneaking around with guilt on his face. He looked comfortable, relaxed, like this was his real life. And everything else was the performance." The observation cut deeper than the photographs had. Ethan at Sunday dinner, pouring wine, kissing Nora's forehead, shaking my hand with that easy confidence. All of it a performance. And River Street. The arm around Cassidy's waist, the bench by the water, the look on his face. That was the truth. After we hung up, I sat alone in my kitchen for a long time. The coffee was cold. The afternoon light was fading through the window. On the refrigerator door, held in place by a small magnolia-shaped magnet that Elaine had bought years ago, was a photograph of Nora and Ethan on their wedding day. Nora had given it to me the week after the ceremony. In the picture, she was laughing, her veil caught by the wind. Ethan stood beside her with his arm around her, smiling that perfect smile. I stood up, walked to the refrigerator, and looked at the photograph closely. I studied Ethan's face the way I used to study a room before entering it during a fire, looking for what was hidden, looking for what did not belong. His smile was the same one he had given Cassidy on the bench. Identical. Same angle of the lips. Same crinkle at the corners of the eyes. A smile he could produce on demand for whoever happened to be standing next to him. I reached up and pulled the photograph off the refrigerator. The magnet dropped to the floor with a small click. I held the picture in both hands for a moment, looking at my daughter's face, her joy, her trust, her absolute belief that the man beside her loved her. Then I turned the photograph face down on the counter and walked away. My phone buzzed once more before evening. A final text from Ray. Tomorrow I am checking his financial activity. Gut feeling says the money trail is going to be ugly. Will update by end of day. I stared at the message until the screen went dark. Then I looked at the photograph lying face down on the counter. Nora's smile hidden against the granite. And I understood something with a clarity that made my chest ache. This was only the beginning. Each day brought something new, and each new thing was worse than the one before. It was like watching a fire spread from room to room, knowing the whole building was going to come down but not being able to look away. Tuesday's report arrived at 1 in the afternoon. Ray had sent a short video and 2 photographs. I opened them at the kitchen table, the same table where I had sat with Elaine for 30 years of morning coffee. Now it had become the place where I watched my son-in-law destroy my daughter's life frame by frame. The video was 11 seconds long. It showed Ethan and Cassidy sitting across from each other inside a restaurant. The camera angle was slightly elevated, shot through a window from the sidewalk outside. Between them on the table, a candle flickered in a glass holder. Cassidy was leaning forward, her chin resting on her hand, smiling at something Ethan had said. He reached across the table and took her other hand, lacing his fingers through hers the way you hold someone's hand when you have done it 1,000 times before. Ray's text explained the rest. The old pink house on Abercorn Street. One of the oldest and most expensive restaurants in Savannah. 18th century colonial architecture. Pink stucco walls, crystal chandeliers, white linen tablecloths. The kind of place you take someone when you want to impress them, or when impressing them stopped being necessary, and you simply want to enjoy something beautiful together. The bill was $245. Ray had included a photograph of the receipt. Payment method: Visa ending in 8173. I recognized the number immediately. It was the joint credit card Nora and Ethan shared. The same card Nora used to buy groceries and pay the electric bill. $245 for a candlelit dinner with another woman, charged to a card my daughter paid off every month with her hospital wages. Wednesday brought more. Ray texted at 11 in the morning. 2 images. The first showed Ethan and Cassidy standing inside a jewelry store. The sign above the door read Savannah Silver, and I knew the shop. It was on Broughton Street, 3 blocks from Ethan's law office. They were standing at a glass display counter, and Cassidy was holding a bracelet up to the light. Silver. Delicate. Catching the overhead lights in small flashes. The second photograph showed them outside the store moments later. Ethan was fastening the bracelet around Cassidy's wrist while she smiled up at him. The receipt, Ray attached, confirmed the purchase. Silver bangle bracelet, $680. Same Visa card, $680 for a bracelet. While Nora worked double shifts to cover extra expenses, while $35,000 of Elaine's life insurance money sat somewhere in Ethan's control, supposedly funding a law practice that did not yet exist. But Wednesday was not finished. At 4 in the afternoon, Ray called instead of texting. That alone told me something significant had changed. I found something bigger, he said. His voice carried a weight it had not carried before. Tell me. I followed Ethan after he left the jewelry store. He drove east on Victory Drive toward the islands. Ended up at Tybee Island. Tybee Island. A small beach community about 20 minutes east of Savannah. Vacation rentals, seafood restaurants, salt marshes, and quiet streets lined with palmetto trees. He pulled into an apartment complex on Butler Avenue, Ray continued. 2-story building, ocean view. He went inside Unit 7 and stayed for about 40 minutes. Does he know someone there? He does now. I spoke with the property management office. Told them I was a prospective tenant asking about availability. The manager mentioned that Unit 7 had just been leased. New tenant. Move-in date is the 1st of next month. My grip tightened on the phone. Who signed the lease? Ethan Ashford. 2-bedroom apartment. $8,000 for first month, last month, and security deposit. He paid the full amount 3 weeks ago. $8,000. An apartment on Tybee Island. A move-in date 4 weeks away. He is not just having an affair, Ray said. And his voice was the flattest I had heard it. He is building an exit. That apartment is not for weekends, Walter. That is where he is planning to live. I stood up from the table and walked to the kitchen window. Outside, the backyard was still. The magnolia tree Elaine had planted 20 years ago standing tall and quiet against the October sky. Its leaves were thick and dark green, unchanged by the season. The way magnolias always are. Steady, resilient, unmoved by what is happening around them. I wished I could say the same about myself. How much has he spent? I asked. On Cassidy specifically? So far, I can document the dinner at $245, the bracelet at $680, and the apartment deposit at $8,000. That is just what I have found in 2 days. There will be more. There is more, I said. You mentioned his financial activity. I am running that now. Should have preliminary results by tomorrow morning. But Walter. He paused. My gut tells me this goes deeper than an affair and an apartment. The way he is spending, the confidence, the lack of caution. This is a man who believes no one is watching. He is wrong. Yes, he is. We ended the call. I stood at the window for a long time, watching the magnolia tree's shadow stretch across the grass as the sun moved lower. Then I walked back to the table and looked at the photograph spread across its surface. The old pink house. The bracelet. The apartment complex on Tybee Island. My phone buzzed one more time. Ray again. Also ran a preliminary check on his financial accounts. Found something you need to see. He has got gambling debts, online sports betting. Significant amounts. Full details tomorrow. I set the phone down and looked across the kitchen at the photograph of Elaine on the dresser by the hallway. She was smiling in the picture, standing in this very kitchen, holding a spatula, laughing at something I had said. I could not remember the joke anymore, but I remembered her laugh, clear and warm, filling every corner of the room. He stole from you too, Elaine, I said quietly. And I am going to prove it. Ray Castillo called at 11:14 that Wednesday night. I was sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of sweet tea I had not touched in over an hour. The ice had melted. The glass was sweating circles onto the oak surface. Elaine would have slipped a coaster underneath without a word. She always did. My phone lit up and I saw his number. 3 calls in one day. That was not normal. Nothing about this week had been normal. Walter, I need you to sit down, Ray said. I am sitting down. Good. Because what I found tonight is worse than the restaurant and the jewelry store and the apartment combined. I pressed the phone harder against my ear. Outside, a mockingbird was singing in the magnolia tree. It felt wrong that the world could sound so peaceful when everything inside my chest was breaking apart. Ray told me he had traced the joint Visa card ending in 8173. The one Nora shared with Ethan. He said there were transactions that did not appear on the main monthly statement because Ethan had set up a separate online portal. He routed certain charges to a digital statement that only went to his personal email. Nora would never see them unless she logged in with his credentials. How much? I asked. $15,000 in the last 4 months. All to 3 online sportsbook platforms. I closed my eyes. $15,000. My daughter worked double shifts in the emergency room. She came home at 3 in the morning smelling like antiseptic and exhaustion. She ate cold cereal standing at the counter because she was too tired to sit. And her husband was betting $15,000 on football games and basketball spreads from the couch she paid for. Ray read the names to me. DraftKings, FanDuel, BetMGM. He said the pattern was classic. Small bets at first, $50 here, 75 there. Then the amounts climbed. 200, 500. By the last month, there were single wagers of $1,200. Ethan was chasing losses. Every gambler does. They believe the next bet will fix all the ones before it. It never does. He won a few times early on, Ray said. That is the trap. He hit a parlay in September for $2,100. After that, he thought he had a system. He did not. I stared at the wedding photograph I had flipped face down the day before. It was still face down. I did not turn it over. So, let me understand this, I said. Nora gave him $35,000 from Elaine's life insurance. And so far, we can account for the Omega watch at $3,000, the Callaway golf clubs at $2,500, the country club membership at $5,000 a year, the dinners and jewelry for Cassidy, the Tybee Island apartment deposit at $8,000, and now $15,000 in gambling losses. That is correct. I reached for a notepad Elaine used to keep by the phone. It still had her handwriting on the top page. A grocery list. Milk, bread, peaches. I turned to a blank page and started writing numbers. Omega watch. 3,000. Golf clubs. 2,500. Country club. 5,000. Old pink house dinner. 245. Savannah silver bangle. 680. Tybee Island deposit. 8,000. Gambling losses. 15,000. I added them slowly. I added them twice to make sure. The total was $34,425. Nora had given him $35,000. He had burned through almost every cent of her mother's life insurance money. The money Elaine had wanted Nora to use for security. For a home. For a future. Ethan had spent it on watches and golf clubs and bets, and a woman named Cassidy Lowe who thought his wife was dead. There might be more, Ray said quietly. I have not finished the credit card trace. There could be cash advances. There could be payments I have not found yet. It does not matter, I said. The money is gone. Walter, I know this is hard. Hard is not the word, Ray. Hard is replacing a roof in July heat. Hard is carrying a 200-pound man down a stairwell in full gear. This is something else. This is watching your child get robbed by the person sleeping next to her. Ray was quiet for a moment. I could hear him breathing. He was a good man. He had seen this kind of thing before. I could tell by the way he measured his silences. He knew when to talk and when to let the anger pass through. There is one more thing, he said. I looked into Ethan's family background like you asked. His mother, Vivian Ashford. Age 67. Ethan told Nora that Vivian lives in a comfortable retirement community in Bluffton, South Carolina. He said he sends her $1,500 a month for expenses. That is what Nora told me. Walter, Vivian Ashford does not live in a retirement community. She lives in a one-bedroom apartment in a low-income senior housing complex on the edge of Bluffton. The building is called Palmetto Gardens. It is government subsidized. Her monthly rent is $420. And according to the management office, no one named Ethan Ashford has ever sent a payment or visited the property. The kitchen went silent. Even the mockingbird stopped. I put the pen down. I looked at the notepad. The numbers stared back at me. $34,425 stolen from my daughter. $1,500 a month that never reached his own mother. A woman living alone in a subsidized apartment while her son bought silver bangles for a woman half her age. I want to see her, I said. Vivian? Yes. Tomorrow morning. Can you get me the address? I will text it to you tonight. I thanked Ray and hung up. I sat in that kitchen for a long time. The tea was room temperature. The notepad was full of numbers that told the story of a man I once welcomed into my family. I had shaken his hand at the wedding. I had given him the magnolia brooch that Elaine wore on our first anniversary. I had trusted him with the only person in this world I would die for. I stood up, rinsed the glass, and placed it upside down on the drying rack. Then I turned off the kitchen light and walked to the bedroom. I set my alarm for 6 in the morning. Bluffton was about 40 minutes south. I wanted to be there early. Tomorrow, I would meet the woman Ethan had abandoned. And I had a feeling she would have stories of her own to tell. I left the house at 6:15 Thursday morning. The sky over Savannah was the color of a bruise, purple and gray, with a thin line of gold at the horizon. I took Route 170 south toward Bluffton. The road cuts through marshland and live oaks draped in Spanish moss. It is beautiful country. I did not notice any of it. Ray had texted the address the night before. Palmetto Gardens, Unit 14. I had looked it up on my phone before bed. The website showed a 2-story building with beige siding and a small parking lot. It called itself an affordable senior living community. That is a polite way of saying government-subsidized housing for people who have nowhere else to go. Ethan told Nora his mother lived in a retirement community with a garden courtyard, a dining hall, and weekly bingo nights. He said he sent her $1,500 every month. Nora believed him. She even suggested they visit Vivian for Thanksgiving. Ethan always had a reason they could not. Vivian was traveling. Vivian had a cold. Vivian preferred to be alone during the holidays. Now I knew why he never let Nora visit. Because the truth would have taken about 30 seconds to see. I pulled into the parking lot at 7:02. The building looked older than the website photos. The beige siding was stained near the gutters. A few window units hummed in the early heat. The front garden was a strip of mulch with 3 azalea bushes that needed trimming. A metal bench near the entrance had rust along its legs. I sat in the truck for a few minutes. I did not know what I would say. I had never met Vivian Ashford. She did not know me. I was the father of the woman her son married. And I was about to tell her that her son was a liar and a thief. Or maybe she already knew. Maybe that was worse. I walked to the front entrance. There was no security desk, no locked gate, just a glass door with a buzzer panel. I pressed 14. A woman's voice came through the speaker, thin and cautious. "Who is it?" "Ma'am, my name is Walter Briggs. I am Nora's father. Your son Ethan's father-in-law." There was a long pause. I could hear a television in the background. A game show. Someone was spinning a wheel. "I do not get visitors," she said. "I know, ma'am. That is part of why I am here." The door buzzed open. Her apartment was on the first floor at the end of a narrow hallway. The carpet was thin and industrial, the kind you see in hospital corridors. The overhead lights were fluorescent. One of them flickered near Unit 12. Vivian opened the door before I reached it. She was 67 years old, but she looked older. She was small, maybe 5'2", with silver hair pulled back in a clip. She wore a cardigan that was too large for her. Her hands gripped the door frame like she was steadying herself against something invisible. "You look like a kind man," she said. "Come in." The apartment was one room with a kitchenette and a bathroom. A twin bed with a floral quilt. A small table with 2 chairs, though I doubted the second chair was ever used. A bookshelf with paperback novels and a framed photograph of a young boy holding a fish. Ethan, maybe 8 years old, smiling the way children smile before they learn how to hide things. "Please sit," Vivian said. She offered me coffee from a drip machine on the counter. The mug she gave me had a chip on the rim. I thanked her and held it with both hands. "Mrs. Ashford," I began. "Vivian. Please, Vivian. I need to ask you some questions about Ethan. And I want you to know that whatever you tell me, I am not here to judge you. I am here because I am trying to protect my daughter." She looked at me for a long time. Her eyes were brown and steady. There was no surprise in them. That is what hit me the hardest. She was not surprised that someone had come asking about her son. "How long has it been since Ethan visited you?" I asked. 2 years and 4 months, she said without hesitation. "He came once after the wedding. He brought Nora. She was lovely. She brought me flowers and a box of pralines from River Street. I liked her very much. That sounds like Nora. After that visit, he called a few times. Then the calls stopped. I tried his number in March. It was disconnected. I tried again in June. Same thing. I wrote him a letter. He did not write back. Vivian, Ethan told Nora that he sends you $1,500 a month. She laughed. It was not a happy sound. It was the kind of laugh that comes when something is so far from the truth that you cannot even be angry about it anymore. Walter, I live on Social Security. $842 a month. My rent is $420. That leaves me $422 for food, medicine, and everything else. Ethan has never sent me a single dollar. Not once. Not ever. I set the coffee mug down. The chip on the rim caught the fluorescent light. This woman was living on $422 a month, while her son spent $680 on a silver bangle for a woman he was not married to. I am sorry, I said. I did not know. You could not have known. He is very good at making people believe things. He has been that way since he was a boy. She stood slowly and walked to the bookshelf. She reached behind the row of paperbacks and pulled out a manila envelope. It was thick, the kind held shut with a red string clasp. The edges were worn, as if she had picked it up and put it back many times. This arrived about 3 years ago, she said. From a law firm in Charleston. I do not understand everything in it, but I kept it because I thought someday someone might come asking. She held it out to me. Her hand trembled slightly, not from age, from the weight of what was inside. I think you are that someone, Walter. I took the envelope. It was heavier than it looked. I did not open it. Not yet. Not in front of this woman who had already carried enough. Vivian, I am going to find out the truth about your son. All of it. And when I do, I am going to make sure Nora knows. And I am going to make sure you are taken care of. That is a promise. She reached across the table and placed her hand on mine. Her fingers were cold and thin, but her grip was firm. Be careful, she said. Ethan does not like being caught. I drove back to Savannah with the manila envelope on the passenger seat. I did not open it. I kept glancing at it at every red light. The red string clasp looked like a seal on something that had been waiting a long time to be read. Whatever was inside that envelope had come from Charleston, and I had a feeling it was going to change everything. I did not open the envelope until I was home. I set it on the kitchen table next to Elaine's notepad, the one with her grocery list still on the top page. Milk, bread, peaches. My numbers from the night before were on the page underneath. $34,425. 2 different kinds of lists on the same pad. One written by a woman who loved her family, the other written by a man trying to prove that love had been stolen. The manila envelope sat between them like a judge waiting to speak. I made a pot of coffee. Not because I needed it, because I needed something to do with my hands before I sat down and read whatever Charleston had sent to Vivian Ashford 3 years ago. I poured a cup. Black. No sugar. Elaine always said I drank my coffee like I fought fires. Straight and without hesitation. But today I hesitated. I stood at the counter and looked at that red string clasp for a full 2 minutes before I sat down and unwound it. Inside were 11 pages. Some were photocopies. Some were originals, on heavy, cream-colored letterhead. The law firm was called Drayton, Hargrove, and Pell, located on Broad Street in Charleston, South Carolina. I had never heard of them, but the documents they had gathered told a story that made my stomach turn. The first page was a letter addressed to Vivian. It was dated 3 years prior. The tone was formal, but not unkind. It said the firm had been retained by a client named Margaret Hollis to investigate financial irregularities connected to her late husband's estate. The investigation had led them to Vivian's son, Ethan James Ashford. I turned to the second page. It was a summary of findings. Ethan had worked at a small real estate law firm in Charleston before moving to Savannah. During that time, he had been involved in the settlement of the Hollis estate, valued at approximately $460,000. Margaret Hollis was the widow. She was 71 years old. She had trusted the firm to manage the distribution of assets. According to the documents, Ethan had redirected $60,000 from the estate into a personal account. He did it through a series of small transfers over 8 months. $5,000 here, $7,000 there, each one disguised as a processing fee or administrative cost. Margaret Hollis did not notice until her accountant flagged the discrepancies during tax season. I read that paragraph twice. $60,000. Stolen from a 71-year-old widow. The same pattern. Find someone who trusts. Take what they have. Disappear before they notice. The third and fourth pages were bank statements. Highlighted lines showed the transfers. Each one had a memo line that read, estate admin fee, or document processing. Professional language designed to look routine, the kind of words that make theft invisible. Pages 5 through 8 were correspondence between Margaret Hollis's attorney and the Charleston County Bar Association. A formal complaint had been filed. The complaint described Ethan's conduct as a pattern of deceptive financial practices inconsistent with the ethical obligations of a licensed attorney in the state of South Carolina. I set those pages down and picked up my coffee. It was already lukewarm. I did not care. Pages 9 and 10 were the resolution. And this is where my jaw tightened. The complaint had been settled privately. Ethan agreed to repay the $60,000 in installments. In exchange, Margaret Hollis agreed not to pursue criminal charges. The Bar Association issued a private reprimand. Not a public one. Private. That meant no public record. No news article. No searchable database entry. Ethan Ashford walked away with his law license intact and his reputation clean. He repaid the money over 18 months. Then he left Charleston. He moved to Savannah. He joined a new firm. He met my daughter. The 11th page was a handwritten note from someone at the law firm. It was addressed to Vivian. It said, Mrs. Ashford, we are sending you these documents as a courtesy. We believe you should be aware of your son's actions. We wish you well. A courtesy. They had handed this woman proof that her son was a thief, and called it a courtesy. And Vivian had kept it behind her paperback novels for 3 years, waiting for someone to come asking. I called Ray at 4:17 that afternoon. I opened the envelope, I said. Tell me. I read him the highlights. The Hollis estate. The $60,000. The fake processing fees. The private reprimand. The settlement. Ray was quiet for a long time. I could hear him writing. Walter. This changes the case, he said. This is not a man who made a mistake. This is a man with a pattern. Charleston was practice. Nora is the next target. Same method. Find a woman who trusts him. Gain access to her finances. Take what he can. Leave when it gets dangerous. He has not left yet, I said. No. But I think he is getting ready to. I tracked his browser history through the shared family computer. Nora mentioned to you last Sunday. He has been searching for apartment listings. In Savannah? No. In Scottsdale, Arizona. 3-bedroom. Gated community. Pet-friendly. He searched them Tuesday night at 11:45. After Nora fell asleep. Arizona. 2,000 miles from Savannah. 2,000 miles from Nora. 2,000 miles from every promise he made at the altar. There is more, Ray said. He told Nora he has a business conference in Atlanta this Friday. He booked a hotel, but the reservation is not in Atlanta. It is at the Spectator Hotel in Charleston. 2 nights. King Suite. And the second guest listed on the reservation is Cassidy Lowe. I stood up from the table. The kitchen felt smaller than it had 5 minutes ago. The walls were closer. The ceiling was lower. Everything was pressing in. He is taking her to Charleston, I said. Yes. And he booked it on the joint visa. I looked at the 11 pages spread across the table. The Hollis estate. The fake fees. The private reprimand that let him walk free. Now he was going back to the city where he had committed his first fraud. And he was bringing the woman he was hiding from my daughter. Ray, how long until you have everything? Every receipt. Every transaction. Every lie. Everything we need. Give me until tomorrow afternoon. I will have it all organized and printed. Good. Because I am done watching. It is time to build the folders. I hung up. I gathered the 11 pages and placed them back inside the manila envelope. I wound the red string clasp shut. Then I placed the envelope on top of Elaine's notepad. The grocery list. The damage numbers. And now the Charleston file. 3 layers of truth stacked on my kitchen table. Tomorrow Ray would deliver the rest. And by Friday night, I would have everything arranged in a way that Ethan Ashford could not deny, could not explain away, and could not survive. Ethan left the house at 7:45 Friday morning. I know because Ray was parked 3 blocks from the Ardsley Park house in a rented gray Camry. He sent me a text at 7:46. Silver BMW turning onto Abercorn. Heading south. South. Atlanta is north of Savannah. 3.5 hours up Interstate 16 to Interstate 75. Every person in Georgia knows that. You go north to Atlanta. You do not go south. South takes you to Interstate 95. And Interstate 95 takes you to Charleston. I was standing at my kitchen counter, reading the text when the second message arrived. A photograph. The BMW. On the ramp to 95 North. The direction marker was clear in the frame. Charleston, 107 miles. He did not even hesitate. He told Nora he had a 2-day conference at the Marriott Marquis in downtown Atlanta. He said it was a continuing legal education seminar on estate planning. He kissed her goodbye at the front door. Ray photographed that too. Ethan in his navy blazer, leather briefcase in one hand, coffee travel mug in the other. Nora in her scrubs, heading to a 12-hour shift at Memorial Health. She waved from the porch. He waved back. Then he drove in the opposite direction of everything he had promised. Ray followed him for 38 miles before pulling off. He did not need to go all the way. We already knew the destination. The Spectator Hotel on State Street in Charleston. King Suite. 2 nights. Cassidy Lowe listed as the second guest. All paid for on joint visa, ending in 8173. Nora's card. Nora's money. Nora's life funding a weekend she would never know about. I sat down at the kitchen table. The Charleston envelope was still there. Elaine's notepad was still there. I had not moved anything since yesterday. The kitchen had become a war room. Evidence on the left. Notes on the right. Coffee in the middle. Ray called at 9:15 from his office on Drayton Street. He checked in at 8:52, Ray said. I have a contact at the hotel. Front desk confirmed. 2 guests. King Suite on the 3rd floor. He requested a bottle of champagne and a cheese board for the room. Champagne. My daughter was putting on latex gloves and triaging patients with broken bones and chest pain. Her husband was ordering champagne for a woman he had been hiding for months. There is something else, Ray said. I went to Ethan's law firm on Broughton Street this morning. I told the receptionist I was a potential client looking for estate planning help. I asked about Ethan specifically. She said he was away at a conference. Atlanta. That is what she said at first. Then she corrected herself. She said, and I am quoting directly, actually, I think he mentioned Charleston. No, wait, Atlanta. I am sorry, he told us Atlanta. She caught herself. Walter, she slipped. She knows something. Did you push her? No. I smiled, took a business card, and left. I did not want to raise suspicion. But her hesitation tells me Ethan may not be hiding Charleston from everyone. His office may know pieces, or at least one person there does. I wrote it down on the notepad. Receptionist. Broughton Street. Slip. Charleston versus Atlanta. It was a small detail. But small details build cases. I learned that from 32 years of fire investigations. The origin of a fire is never the biggest flame. It is the smallest burn mark in the corner that everyone else walks past. Now, Ray said. The ring. The engagement ring. Yes. I traced the Zales purchase that Harriet Beaumont told you about. The one from Oglethorpe Mall. It was bought 11 days ago. A 1.2-carat Princess Solitaire in a white-a-gold setting. The price was $4,200. $4,200. I wrote the number below the receptionist's note. My hand was steady. It surprised me. Something had shifted inside me overnight. The anger was still there, but it had changed shape. It was no longer hot. It was cold and precise, like a blade laid flat on a table. How did he pay? I asked. Cash. He paid in cash. That is why it did not show up on the Visa statement. He walked into Zales with $4,200 bills and walked out with a ring box. No paper trail on the card. If Harriet had not seen him, we would never have known. Cash. He was careful with this one. The dinners and the bangle and the apartment he put on the Visa because he controlled the online portal. But the ring, he paid cash. Because a ring means something. A ring is a promise. And he did not want this promise anywhere Nora could find it. Ray, where is the ring now? My best guess is he has it with him in Charleston. I believe he intends to propose to Cassidy Lowe this weekend. I closed my eyes. The mockingbird was back in the magnolia tree. Same song as Wednesday night. The world keeps making the same sounds even when everything inside it is falling apart. He is going to propose to another woman while he is still married to my daughter. That is what the evidence suggests. Yes. I stood up and walked to the window. The street was quiet. A neighbor was watering roses across the road. A mail truck was turning the corner. Ordinary life, doing ordinary things. And inside my kitchen, 11 pages from Charleston, a notepad full of stolen numbers, and a man 2 hours south about to put a $4,200 ring on the wrong woman's finger. Ray, I need everything printed and organized by tonight. Every photograph, every receipt, every bank record, the Zales purchase, the hotel reservation, the Tybee Island lease, the gambling statements, the Charleston file. All of it. I can have it ready by 6. Good. I am going to buy 5 folders. 1 for each category. Infidelity, financial fraud, gambling, the Charleston case, and Vivian. 5 folders, Ray repeated. 5 folders. 1 truth in each. And when I put them on the table in front of my daughter, there will be nothing left for Ethan Ashford to hide behind. I drove to the Staples on Abercorn Street at 10:30 that morning. I bought 5 manila folders, a pack of colory-coded tabs, a black Sharpie, and a box of sheet protectors. The cashier asked if I was organizing a project. I told her yes, the most important project of my life. I drove home and cleared the kitchen table. I placed the 5 empty folders in a row. I labeled each one in Elaine's handwriting style, the block capitals she used on every label in our house. Folder 1. Infidelity. Folder 2. Financial fraud. Folder 3. Gambling. Folder 4. Charleston. Folder 5. Vivian. Then I sat down and waited for 6 o'clock. For Ray. For the evidence that would fill each folder to the spine. And for the moment when my daughter would finally see the man she married for who he really was. Ray Castillo knocked on my front door at 6:11 Friday evening. He was carrying a cardboard box. It was the kind you get from an office supply store. White with a lift-off lid. He held it with both hands, close to his chest, the way you carry something that matters. Everything is inside, he said. I led him to the kitchen. The 5 empty folders were still on the table where I had left them that morning, labeled in block capitals. Infidelity. Financial fraud. Gambling. Charleston. Vivian. Ray set the box on the counter and removed the lid. Inside were stacks of paper organized with rubber bands, photographs printed on glossy stock, bank statements highlighted in yellow, hotel confirmations, receipts, a USB drive in a small plastic bag. The USB has digital copies of everything, Ray said. Photographs, screenshots, transaction records. If any paper gets lost or damaged, the backup is there. I nodded. He had thought of everything. That is why I hired him. Not because he was cheap. Not because he was fast. Because he was thorough. 32 years on the Savannah-Haddam police force had taught him that evidence does not argue. Evidence does not get emotional. Evidence sits on a table and tells the truth whether anyone wants to hear it or not. We started with folder 1. Infidelity. Ray handed me the photographs first. 14 prints in total. Ethan and Cassidy Lowe on River Street, holding hands on the cobblestones. Ethan and Cassidy at the old pink house, seated across a candlelit table. Ethan and Cassidy on a bench overlooking the Savannah River, her head resting on his shoulder. Ethan and Cassidy entering the Tybee Island apartment, Unit 7 on Butler Avenue. Each photograph had a date and timestamp printed in the bottom right corner. Each one was slipped into a clear sheet protector. Behind the photographs, I placed Ray's written report. 3 pages. Single lows spaced. It detailed the surveillance timeline from Monday through Friday. Locations, times, license plate numbers, physical descriptions. At the bottom of the 3rd page, Ray had included a paragraph about Cassidy Lowe. 23, 8 years old. Paralegal at a Whitaker Street law firm. Single. No criminal record. She believed Ethan was a widower. He had told her his wife died 2 years ago in a car accident. I read that line twice. A car accident. He had killed Nora in a story to make another woman feel safe. My living, breathing daughter, reduced to a lie. So convenient, it fit inside one sentence. I closed folder 1. Folder 2. Financial fraud. This one was the thickest. Ray had printed every transaction from the joint visa ending in 8173 that Ethan had hidden through the separate online portal. 4 months of charges. The old pink house dinner at $245. The Savannah silver bangle at $680. The Tybee Island deposit at $8,000. The Spectator Hotel in Charleston at $1,900 for 2 nights. Smaller charges too. Gas stations on the route to Tybee. A florist on Bull Street. A bottle of perfume from a boutique on Broughton Street. $160. All paid with money that flowed from Nora's paychecks into a card her husband controlled. Behind the statements, I placed a summary sheet Ray had prepared. It listed every hidden charge in chronological order, with a running total. The final line read $38,625. That included the $4,200 Zales ring paid in cash. Ray had obtained the Zales receipt through a contact. It was stapled to the back of the summary. A receipt for a Princessa-cut solitaire in white gold, purchased with $4,200 bills by a man who told the jeweler it was for his fiancée. I closed folder 2. Folder 3. Gambling. Ray had printed the account summaries from all 3 sportsbook platforms. DraftKings, FanDuel, BetMGM. Each summary showed deposits, wagers, wins, and losses. The deposits came from the same hidden Visa portal. The total losses over 4 months were $15,000. Ray had highlighted the largest single bet, $1,200, on a Monday night football game in November. A loss. And the largest single win, $2,100 on a parlay in September. The win that made Ethan believe he could beat the system. He could not. I added a 1-page note Ray had written, explaining how Ethan concealed the gambling charges. The same method as the other hidden transactions. A secondary email. A secondary login. A wall between his real life and the one Nora thought they shared. I closed folder 3. Folder 4. Charleston. I did not need Ray for this one. I already had the 11 pages from Vivian's manila envelope, the letter from Drayton, Hargrove, and Pell, the summary of the Hollis estate fraud, $60,000 in fake processing fees stolen from a 71-year-old widow, the bank statements with highlighted transfers, the Bar Association complaint, the private reprimand, the settlement agreement. I slid all 11 pages into sheet protectors and placed them in the folder. On top, I added a single index card where I had written in block letters: Pattern. Charleston first. Savannah second. Who is next? Soluv. I closed folder 4. Folder 5. Vivian. This was the thinnest folder, but it carried the most weight. Ray had obtained a photograph of Palmetto Gardens, the beige siding, the rusted bench, the 3 azalea bushes. He had also obtained a copy of Vivian's lease agreement showing her monthly rent of $420. I added a printout of the Social Security payment schedule, confirming her monthly income of $842, and I added my own handwritten note describing my visit. Her 1D bedroom apartment, the twin bed with the floral quilt, the chipped coffee mug, the framed photograph of a boy holding a fish, the cardigan that was too large, and the sentence she had spoken that I would never forget. He has never sent me a single dollar. Not once. Not ever. At the bottom of the folder, I placed the photograph of young Ethan with the fish. Vivian had given it to me as I was leaving. She said she did not need it anymore. She said the boy in that photograph no longer existed. I closed folder 5. It was 9:47. Ray had left an hour earlier. The kitchen was quiet. The box on the counter was empty. The 5 folders sat in a row on the table, like chapters of a book no one should ever have to read. I made a pot of decaf and sat across from them. I did not open them again. I did not need to. I knew every page, every number, every photograph, every line of every lie. The question now was when. Ethan would return from Charleston on Sunday. Nora had Sunday off. I needed a moment when they were both home. A moment when there was no escape. No phone call to duck behind. No conference to run to. No lie fast enough to outrun 5 folders full of truth. I washed my cup. I turned off the light. I walked to the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. Elaine's side was still made the way she left it. Pillow straight. Quilt folded. I placed my hand on the pillow and spoke to her the way I had every night since she passed. I have everything now, I whispered. Every piece. Tomorrow I rest. Sunday, I finish this. The house was silent, but I felt her answer the way I always did. Not in words, in warmth, in the certainty that she was still beside me, still watching, still believing I would do the right thing for our daughter. I set my alarm and closed my eyes. Sunday was coming. Saturday was the longest day of my life. Longer than the day Elaine was diagnosed. Longer than the day we buried her. Because on those days there was nothing I could do. The world made its decisions, and I stood inside them. But Saturday was different. Saturday, I had 5 folders on my kitchen table, and a plan for Sunday and 24 hours of waiting between me and the moment that would change my daughter's life forever. I tried to keep busy. I mowed the front lawn even though it did not need mowing. I cleaned the gutters. I reorganized the toolbox in the garage. I ate a sandwich at noon that tasted like nothing. I sat on the porch at 3 o'clock and watched the neighbors walk their dogs and water their gardens and live their ordinary Saturday lives. None of them knew that 2 streets over, 5 manila folders were sitting on a kitchen table like loaded weapons. At 4:30, I drove to the grocery store. Not Publix. I could not go back to Publix. Not yet. I went to Kroger on Duran Avenue and bought milk, bread, and peaches. The same 3 items on Elaine's grocery list. I did not plan it. My hand just reached for them. Some habits live deeper than memory. I came home and put the groceries away. I checked my phone. No messages from Ray. No messages from Nora. Ethan was still in Charleston with Cassidy Lowe, still pretending his wife was dead, still carrying a $4,200 ring meant for a woman who was not my daughter. I sat down. I stood up. I sat down again. The clock moved like it was wading through honey. Then at 9:17 that evening my phone rang. The screen said Nora. My heart hit my ribs so hard I felt it in my teeth. Nora had not called me since last Sunday night when she locked me out of her house and told me Mom would be ashamed. 6 days of silence. 6 days of my daughter believing I was the enemy. And now her name was on my screen at 9:17 on a Saturday night. I answered before the second ring. Daddy? She had not called me that since she was 12 years old. The word came through the speaker cracked and wet, like she had been crying for a while, before she picked up the phone. I am here, sweetheart. Daddy. I found something. I closed my eyes. I gripped the edge of the kitchen table with my free hand. The 5 folders were right there, right under my fingers. But I did not say a word about them. This was her moment. She had to arrive at the truth on her own terms. If I pushed, she would push back. I had learned that the hard way. Tell me, I said. She told me. Her voice was shaking, but she told me everything. Ethan had left for his Atlanta conference Friday morning. He packed a small suitcase, navy blazer, dress shoes. He kissed her at the door. She worked a double shift Friday and came home at midnight, exhausted. She slept until noon Saturday. When she woke up, she started cleaning the house, laundry, dishes, vacuuming. The ordinary things you do when your husband is away and the house feels too quiet. She was emptying the pockets of Ethan's gray sport coat before putting it in the washing machine. The one he wore to dinner last Wednesday. She found a folded piece of paper in the inside breast pocket. She almost threw it away. She almost did, but something made her open it. It was a receipt from Husk Restaurant on Abercorn Street in Savannah, dated the previous Wednesday. 2 guests, 2 entrees, 2 glasses of wine, 1 dessert to share. The total was $187, paid with Visa, ending in 8173. Nora said she stared at it for a long time. She had not been to Husk last Wednesday. She was working a 12-hour shift at Memorial Health. She clocked in at 7 in the morning and clocked out at 7:30 in the evening. She remembered because a child came in with a broken arm and she stayed late to comfort the mother. Her husband was not at dinner with her. He was at dinner with someone else. Someone who shared a dessert with him. Someone who sat across the table in a restaurant that charges $187 for 2 people on a Wednesday night. Daddy, who was he with? I did not answer right away. I wanted to. Every part of me wanted to open those folders and read her every line. But not on the phone. Not like this. She deserved to see it with her own eyes. She deserved to hold the photographs and read the bank statements and understand the full scope of what had been done to her. A phone call was not enough for the weight of this truth. Nora, I need you to listen to me very carefully, I said. I know more than I told you last Sunday. Much more. I have spent this entire week gathering information. I did it because I love you, and because I promised your mother I would always protect you. She was crying. I could hear it. Not the loud kind. The quiet kind. The kind that comes when the ground you are standing on begins to shift and you realize it was never solid. I need to come to the house, I said. Tonight. I need to show you what I have found. All of it. And I need you to promise me you will look at every page before you say a word. Ethan is not here. He is in Atlanta until tomorrow. He is not in Atlanta, sweetheart. Silence. 3 seconds. 5 seconds. 7. What do you mean he is not in Atlanta? I will explain everything when I get there. Every detail. But I need you to trust me the way you used to. The way you did before last Sunday. Can you do that? She was quiet for a moment. I heard her breathe. I heard the house around her, the hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the hallway clock Elaine had given them as a wedding present. Come now, she said. Please. I was in the truck in under 2 minutes. The 5 folders were on the passenger seat. The USB drive was in my shirt pocket. The streets of Savannah were quiet and dark, and the Spanish moss hung motionless in the still night air. I drove the speed limit, even though every part of me wanted to go faster. There was no rush now. The truth had waited 6 days. It could wait 12 more minutes. I turned onto her street at 9:30:09. The porch light was on. The front door was open, and my daughter was standing in the doorway with her arms crossed over her chest, still holding a folded receipt from a restaurant she had never been to. I parked. I picked up the folders. I walked toward the light. She was still standing in the doorway when I reached the porch steps. The receipt from Husk was in her right hand. Her left hand was gripping the doorframe the same way Vivian had gripped hers 2 days ago. I recognized the posture. It is how people hold themselves when they know something is about to change, and they are not ready for it, but they are too tired to run. "Come inside," she said. The living room looked the same as last Sunday. The couch, the bookshelf, the wedding photograph on the mantel. Ethan's Omega watch was not on the side table. He had taken it to Charleston. Of course he had. I placed the 5 folders on the coffee table in a row. Infidelity. Financial fraud. Gambling. Charleston. Vivian. The labels faced her. She looked at them the way you look at a doctor's report before you open it. You already know what it might say. You just need a moment before the words become real. "Sit down, sweetheart," I said. She sat on the couch. I sat in the armchair across from her. Between us were 5 folders and 38 years of trust that was about to break. "Start with the first one," I said. "Take your time. I am not going anywhere." Nora opened folder 1. Infidelity. She saw the first photograph and stopped breathing. I watched her chest freeze. Her eyes locked on the glossy print. Ethan and Cassidy on River Street. Holding hands. The cobblestones. The riverfront. The date stamp in the corner. Monday, 4 days ago. While Nora was at work saving lives, her husband was walking along the water with a 28-year-old paralegal who believed she was dating a widower. She turned to the second photograph. The old pink house. Candlelight. 2 wine glasses. His hand reaching across the table to hold hers. Nora made a sound I had never heard before. It was not a cry. It was not a word. It was something between the two. A sound that comes from the place where love and betrayal collide. She went through all 14 photographs without speaking. Then she read Ray's report. 3 pages. She read every line. When she reached the paragraph about Cassidy Lowe and the lie Ethan had told her, that his wife had died in a car accident, Nora pressed her hand against her mouth. She held it there for 10 seconds. Then she lowered it and turned to folder 2. Financial fraud. The visa statements. The hidden portal. The summary sheet, with the running total. She traced the numbers with her finger. 245. 680. 8,000. 1,900. 160. 4,200. The Zales receipt was at the back. She held it close to her face as if the small print might say something different if she looked hard enough. It did not. 1.2 carat princessicut solitaire. White gold. $4,200. Cash. He bought her a ring. Nora whispered. With cash. So I would not see it. I said nothing. There was nothing to say. The receipt said everything. Folder 3. Gambling. She opened it and scanned the sportsbook summaries. DraftKings. FanDuel. BetMGM. $15,000 in losses. She shook her head slowly, not in disbelief, in recognition. I could see it in her eyes. She was connecting pieces. The times Ethan was on his phone late at night. The times he snapped at her when she asked what he was doing. The times he said he was working on case files but his screen was tilted away from her. She had noticed those things. She had just chosen not to question them, because questioning them meant questioning everything. She closed folder 3 and reached for folder 4. Charleston. This one took the longest. She read all 11 pages from the law firm, the Hollis estate, the $60,000 in fake administrative fees, the 71-year-old widow, the private reprimand, the settlement that let Ethan walk away with a clean record. When she reached my index card, the one that read pattern, Charleston first, Savannah second. Who is next? She placed it on the couch beside her and stared at the wall. He did this before, she said. Before me. Yes, and no one stopped him. They settled. Privately. No public record. She picked up the index card again. She read it one more time. Then she placed it back in the folder and closed it. Folder 5. Vivian. Nora opened it and saw the photograph of Palmetto Gardens, the beige siding, the rusted bench, the 3 azalea bushes. She read Vivian's lease. $420 a month. She read the Social Security statement. $842. She read my handwritten note about the visit, the twin bed, the floral quilt, the chipped mug, the cardigan, and the sentence I had written at the bottom, underlined once. He has never sent me a single dollar. Not once. Not ever. Nora closed the folder. She placed it on the table with the others. She sat very still. The hallway clock ticked. Elaine's clock. The wedding present. It was 12:27 in the morning. She had been reading for nearly 3 hours. Then she did something I did not expect. She reached down and pulled her wedding ring off her left hand. It was a simple gold band with a small diamond. Ethan had told her it cost $3,000. I wondered now if that was true. I wondered if anything he had ever told her was true. She placed the ring on top of folder 1, right on the photograph of Ethan and Cassidy holding hands on River Street. The gold band sat on the glossy print, like a period, at the end of a sentence. He comes home tomorrow, she said. Her voice was flat, emptied out, like a house after a fire. The structure is still standing, but everything inside has burned. I know, I said. I want to be here when he walks through that door. And I want these folders on this table. Exactly like this. And I want him to see them before he says a single word. I looked at my daughter. She was 35 years old. She had her mother's jaw and her mother's spine. Last Sunday, she had locked me out and told me Elaine would be ashamed. Now she was sitting in her living room at midnight with 5 folders of evidence and a wedding ring she had just removed from her own hand. I will be right here beside you, I said. I know, Daddy. She leaned forward and placed her hand on mine. The same way Vivian had done in that small apartment in Bluffton. 2 women. 2 different lives. Both betrayed by the same man. Both reaching for the same thing. Someone they could trust. We sat together in the quiet living room. The clock ticked. The porch light hummed. The 5 folders waited. And somewhere in Charleston, in a king suite at the Spectator Hotel, Ethan Ashford was sleeping beside the wrong woman, not knowing that everything he had built on lies was already over. Tomorrow morning he would drive home. He would pull into the driveway. He would walk through the front door, expecting Sunday dinner and a wife who did not know. He was wrong. Neither of us slept. Nora made a pot of coffee at 5 in the morning, and we sat in the living room watching the sky turn from black to gray to pale gold through the front window. The 5 folders were still on the coffee table. The wedding ring was still on top of folder 1. Neither of us had moved them. They sat there like evidence in a courtroom, waiting for the defendant to arrive. Nora had changed out of her pajamas sometime around 4. She put on jeans and a white blouse. She brushed her hair and pulled it back. She did not put on makeup. She did not need to. She was not dressing for anyone. She was dressing for herself, for the woman she was about to become. I asked her once during the night if she wanted me to leave before Ethan arrived. She looked at me the way Elaine used to look at me when I said something that did not deserve a response. She did not answer. She did not need to. I was staying. At 7:52 we heard it. The low rumble of the BMW pulling into the driveway. The engine cut off. A car door closed. Footsteps on the walkway. The jingle of keys. The front door opened. Ethan walked in carrying his leather briefcase and a small suitcase. He was wearing the navy blazer. His hair was neat. He smelled like hotel soap and cologne. He looked rested. He looked like a man who had spent 2 nights in a king suite in Charleston with a woman who thought she was his only one. He saw me first. His smile flickered. Not a frown. Just a micro-adjustment. The kind people make when they walk into a room and find something that does not belong. "Walter," he said. "Good morning. I did not expect you here so early." Then he saw the coffee table, the 5 folders in a row, the block capital labels facing him. Infidelity, financial fraud, gambling, Charleston, Vivian. And on top of the first folder, catching the morning light through the window, Nora's gold wedding ring. His face changed. It happened in stages. First the confusion, then the recognition. Then something cold moved across his eyes, like a cloud passing over the sun. He set the briefcase down slowly. He did not set the suitcase down. He held it, as if part of him already knew he might need it. "What is this?" he said. Nora stood up from the couch. She was calm. Calmer than I expected. Calmer than I would have been. She had spent 3 hours reading every page and the rest of the night absorbing it. The shock was gone. What remained was something harder. Something that does not shake. "Sit down, Ethan." "Nora. What is going on?" "Walter. Why are you?" "Sit down." He sat. He chose the armchair. The one I had been sitting in all night. I moved to the corner by the bookshelf. This was not my confrontation. This was hers. I was there to witness, to support, not to lead. Nora picked up folder 1 and placed it in his lap. "Open it." He opened it. He saw the photographs. River Street. The old pink house. The bench by the river. Tybee Island. His face did not change. That is what disturbed me most. A man caught in 14 photographs with another woman, and his face did not change. He had rehearsed this moment. Maybe not consciously, but somewhere inside him, he had always known this day might come. And he had built a wall for it. "Where did you get these?" he said. "It does not matter where I got them. What matters is that they exist, and that the woman in those photographs thinks I am dead." "You told her I died in a car accident, Ethan." "A car accident." He looked up at her. For the first time I saw something move behind his eyes. Not guilt, not shame, calculation. He was calculating how much she knew, how much damage control was possible, whether there was a version of this conversation he could still win. "Nora, let me explain. Open folder 2. He opened it. The visa statements, the hidden transactions, the summary sheet. $38,625. He flipped through the pages fast. Too fast to read. He was scanning for the worst items. The Zales receipt stopped him. He held it for 3 seconds. Then he placed it back. "Folder 3, Nora said. "Gambling. $15,000. DraftKings. FanDuel. BetMGM." He closed it quickly. "Folder 4. Charleston. The Hollis Estate. $60,000. The private reprimand." He read the first page and stopped. His jaw tightened. This was the one he did not expect. This was the one he thought was buried. "Where did you get this?" His voice was different now. Lower. Sharper. The charm was gone. The man, underneath, was showing. "From your mother," Nora said. That hit him. I saw it. The word mother landed like a physical blow. His head moved back half an inch. His grip on the folder tightened. "You went to see my mother?" "My father went to see your mother. She lives in a one-bedroom apartment in a subsidized housing complex in Bluffton. She eats on $428 a month. She has not heard from you in over 2 years. Open folder 5. He did not open it. He did not need to. He knew what was inside. He knew because he was the one who had created every condition described in those pages. The poverty, the silence, the abandonment. He had done all of it and then told his wife he was sending $1,500 a month. The room was still. The hallway clock ticked. Elaine's clock, counting the seconds of a marriage that was ending in real time. Ethan set the folders on the table. He stood up. He buttoned his blazer. It was a strange gesture. A man straightening his costume before the final act. "I am not going to sit here and be ambushed," he said. "You are not being ambushed," Nora said. "You are being seen." For the first time, he looked at her. Then he looked at me. Then he looked at the wedding ring, sitting on top of the photograph. He did not reach for it. "I will send someone for my things," he said. He picked up his suitcase. The same one he had packed Friday morning for a conference that did not exist. He walked to the door. He did not turn around. He did not apologize. He did not try to explain. He simply left. The way he had left Charleston, the way he had left his mother. The way he left every place and every person once they stopped being useful. The BMW started. The engine pulled away. The street went quiet. Nora stood in the doorway. The morning sun was on her face. She was not crying. She was not shaking. She was standing the way her mother used to stand in that same doorway when Elaine watched me leave for a fire call. Straight. Still. Strong. "Daddy," she said without turning around. "Yes, sweetheart. Thank you for not giving up on me." I walked to the doorway and stood beside her. The street was empty. The live oaks were still. A cardinal landed on the mailbox and tilted its head at us. Somewhere in this city, a silver BMW was driving away from everything it had destroyed. But in this doorway, in this morning light, my daughter was still standing. And that was enough. The house was too quiet after he left. Nora stood in the doorway for a long time. I did not rush her. Some silences need to be lived through, not filled. When she finally turned around, her eyes were dry but distant, the way a person looks after a fever breaks. The pain is not gone. It has just changed into something the body can carry. She packed a bag that afternoon. Not everything. Just clothes for a week, her laptop, a few toiletries, and a small wooden box from the top shelf of the bedroom closet. I did not ask what was in it. She held it against her chest while I carried her suitcase to the truck. She locked the front door of the Ardsley Park house and stood on the porch, looking at it as if she were seeing it for the first time. Or the last. "I cannot stay here tonight," she said. "You do not have to. Your room is ready." She moved into her old bedroom at my house. The one with the lavender walls Elaine had painted when Nora was 16. The bookshelf still had her high school yearbooks. The dresser still had a framed photograph of Nora and Elaine at Tybee Beach, both of them laughing, sand on their feet, the ocean behind them. Nora set her bag on the bed and placed the wooden box on the nightstand. Then she closed the door. I heard her crying through the wall. Low and steady, the kind of crying that has no audience. The kind that happens when you finally stop being brave. I sat in the kitchen and let her be. Elaine would have knocked. Elaine would have brought tea and sat on the edge of the bed and held her. But I am not Elaine. I am a man who knows how to build things and fix things and fight things. I do not always know how to hold the pieces when they fall. So I sat at the table with the empty space where the 5 folders had been, and I waited for my daughter to tell me what she needed. She came out at 7 that evening. Her eyes were swollen. Her hair was loose. She sat across from me and said 4 words. "I need a lawyer." Monday morning, I drove her to the office of Catherine Marsh on Bull Street. Ray had recommended her. Family law. 22 years of experience. Specializing in divorces involving financial fraud, Catherine was a tall woman with silver reading glasses and a handshake that meant business. She listened to Nora for 45 minutes without interrupting. Then she reviewed the 5 folders. All of them. Every page. Every receipt. Every photograph. When she finished, she took off her glasses and set them on the desk. "Your husband is not a careless man," Catherine said. "He is a systematic one. That makes this easier in some ways, and harder in others. Easier, because the pattern is clear. Harder because systematic people cover their tracks. He did not cover them well enough," Nora said. Catherine filed the divorce petition on Tuesday. Grounds: adultery and financial misconduct. She included a request for emergency financial relief, asking the court to freeze the joint accounts and prevent Ethan from liquidating assets. The judge granted it within 48 hours. On Wednesday, Nora filed a formal complaint with the Georgia State Bar Association. She used the Charleston documents as supporting evidence of a pattern of ethical violations. She included the Hollis estate fraud, the private reprimand from South Carolina, and the financial evidence from Savannah. Catherine told her the bar would investigate. It could take months, but the complaint was on record. A second complaint from a second state. Even a private reprimand cannot survive that. Ethan did not contest the divorce. He did not respond to the petition. He did not hire an attorney. He did not call Nora. He did not call me. He simply disappeared, the way smoke disappears after a fire. You know it was there. You can smell it, but you cannot hold it in your hands. Ray tracked him. Of course Ray tracked him. The silver BMW crossed the Georgia state line on Monday evening. It was photographed by a toll camera on Interstate 10 inches Tallahassee Tuesday morning. By Wednesday it was in Mobile, Alabama. By Thursday it was in Houston. By the following Monday, Ray confirmed that Ethan James Ashford had signed a lease on a 3-bedroom apartment in a gated community in Scottsdale, Arizona. The same listing he had searched on the family computer the week before. He had been planning his exit long before Nora found the receipt. Cassidy Lowe was not with him. Ray checked. She was still in Savannah, still working at the Whitaker Street law firm. Whether she knew the truth about Ethan by now, or was still living inside his lie, I did not know. And it was not my story to chase. The weeks that followed were slow. Nora worked her shifts at Memorial Health. She came home to the lavender room. She ate dinner with me at the kitchen table. We did not talk about Ethan every night. Some nights we talked about Elaine. Some nights we talked about the weather or the garden or a patient who made her laugh. Some nights we did not talk at all. We just sat together and let the silence be what it was. Not empty. Not heavy. Just present. She opened the wooden box one evening while I was washing dishes. I glanced over and saw what was inside. Letters. Handwritten. Elaine's handwriting. I recognized the loops and the slant from 40 years of grocery lists and birthday cards and love notes tucked into my lunch bag. Nora had kept every letter her mother ever wrote her. She read one each night before bed. She never told me what they said. She did not need to. They were between a mother and a daughter. Some things are sacred even when one of them is gone. The divorce was finalized in late January. Uncontested. Ethan forfeited his claim to the house. Nora kept the Ardsley Park property. Catherine secured a judgment for the misappropriated funds, though collecting from a man in Scottsdale who had already spent everything would be a long process. The money was likely gone, but the record was not, and the Bar Association investigation was still open. On a Thursday evening in late January, I was clearing the dinner plates when Nora said something that stopped me. "Daddy, I want to go to Bluffton." I set the plates in the sink and turned around. "I want to meet Vivian," she said. She lost a son. I lost a husband. But she should not have to lose a daughter-in-law too. I looked at my daughter. She was sitting at the same table where I had tallied the damage. The same table where Elaine's grocery list once lay. The same table where 5 folders had waited for the truth to be delivered. And now my daughter was sitting there asking to drive 40 minutes south to visit a 67-year-old woman in a subsidized apartment because she believed no one should be left behind. "We will go Saturday," I said. Nora nodded. She picked up her cup of tea and held it with both hands, the same way Vivian had held her coffee mug in that small kitchen. Two women who had never met, connected by the same broken man, and about to be connected by something stronger. We left for Bluffton at 9 Saturday morning. The sky was clean and bright. January in the Low Country is not cold the way other places are cold. It is cool and still. The marsh grass turns gold, and the air smells like salt and pine and something ancient that has no name. Nora sat in the passenger seat with her hands in her lap. She was quiet for the first 20 minutes. I did not fill the silence. I had learned over these past weeks that my daughter's silences were not empty. They were full of things she was building inside herself. Sentences she would say when she was ready. Decisions she was shaping with care. We crossed the bridge over the broad river, and I watched the water catch the morning light. Elaine and I had driven this road once, years ago, on our way to Hilton Head for our anniversary. She had rolled down the window and let the salt air blow through her hair and said, "Walter, some roads take you where you need to go, even when you did not know you needed to get there." I did not understand what she meant then. I did now. "Daddy," Nora said as we passed the Bluffton town limit sign. "Yes. What if she does not want to see me? I am connected to the person who hurt her. You are also connected to the person who found her. And you are driving 40 minutes to sit in her kitchen because you believe she matters. That is not a small thing, Nora." She nodded. She looked out the window at the live oaks lining the road. They were old trees, patient trees, the kind that grow slowly and hold everything. I pulled into the Palmetto Gardens parking lot at 9:43. The building looked the same as the last time. Beige siding, rusted bench, 3 azalea bushes. But the morning light was kinder than the early morning gray I had seen before. It softened the edges. It made the place look less like a sentence and more like a home. We walked to the entrance. I pressed 14. The speaker crackled. "Who is it?" "Vivian." "It is Walter Briggs. And I have someone with me." A pause. Then the buzzer. Vivian opened the door before we reached it. She was wearing the same large cardigan. Her silver hair was pulled back, but something was different. She had set 2 mugs on the small table instead of 1. She had been expecting company. Maybe not today, but someday. She had been waiting for someday. When she saw Nora, she stopped. Her hand went to her chest, not in pain, in recognition. She looked at my daughter, the way you look at a photograph you thought you had lost. "You look just like you did at the wedding," Vivian said. "Except stronger." Nora stepped forward. She did not shake Vivian's hand. She did not introduce herself. She wrapped her arms around the older woman and held her. Vivian's hands hovered in the air for a moment, uncertain, the way hands hover when they have not been held in a long time. Then they came down and rested on Nora's back. They stood like that for a while. I stayed by the door. Some moments do not need a third person inside them. They just need a witness standing near the edge. We sat at the small table. Vivian poured coffee from the same drip machine. The same chipped mug for me. A new one for Nora. White with yellow flowers. Vivian said she had bought it at the dollar store last week. She said she did not know why. She just felt like she should have an extra mug. They talked for 2 hours. Nora told Vivian about the folders, about the divorce, about the bar association complaint. Vivian listened without interrupting. She nodded in places. She closed her eyes in others. When Nora told her about the Spectator Hotel and the ring and Cassidy Lowe, Vivian placed her hand flat on the table and pressed down hard, as if she were keeping something from rising up inside her. "I am sorry," Vivian said. "I should have warned you." "You did," Nora said. "You kept the envelope. That was your warning. You just had to wait for someone to come and find it." Vivian looked at me. Her brown eyes were wet. She did not wipe them. "Thank you, Walter, for coming that Thursday. For asking. You deserve to be asked, Vivian." Nora reached across the table and took Vivian's hand. The same gesture Vivian had made with me. The same gesture Nora had made the night of truth. 3 hands across 3 tables. A chain of trust, built link by link across the worst weeks of our lives. Before we left, Nora made a promise. She told Vivian she would visit every 2 weeks. She told her she would look into better housing options. She told her she would make sure she had a working phone and a number that was always answered. Vivian pressed her lips together and nodded. She did not cry. She had spent too many years alone to cry easily in front of people. But her eyes said everything. Her voice could not. We drove home in the late afternoon. The marsh grass was golden in the low sun. Nora was quiet again. But this silence was different from the one on the drive down. That silence was full of fear. This one was full of something that comes after fear leaves. Not happiness. Not yet. But the space where happiness can grow. When we pulled into the driveway, I asked Nora to wait on the porch. I went inside and opened the top drawer of my dresser. Beneath a folded handkerchief was a small velvet box. Navy blue. Worn at the corners. I had kept it there since the day Elaine died. I walked back to the porch. Nora was sitting on the swing. The same swing Elaine used to sit on with her sweet tea in the evenings, watching the fireflies come out over the lawn. "Your mother wanted you to have this," I said. "She told me before she passed. She said to give it to you when the time was right. I did not know when that was. I think I know now." I opened the box. Inside was the magnolia brooch. Sterling silver. Hand-carved petals. A single freshwater pearl at the center. I had given it to Elaine on our first anniversary. She wore it to every important occasion for 37 years. Weddings, christenings, graduations, funerals. She wore it the day Nora was born. She wore it the last Sunday she went to church. Nora took the box. She lifted the brooch and held it in the palm of her hand. The pearl caught the porch light. "She wore this the day I graduated nursing school," Nora whispered. "She did. And the day I got married." "Yes." Nora closed her fingers around the brooch. She held it tight. Then she pinned it to the collar of her jacket. The silver petals rested against the fabric. The pearl faced outward. It looked exactly the way it had looked on Elaine. "Mom would be proud of you," I said. Nora looked at me. She smiled. It was not a big smile. It was the kind of smile that comes after you have walked through something terrible and discovered you are still here. Still whole. Still your mother's daughter. "She would be proud of you too, Daddy." We sat on the porch swing together as the sun went down. The street was quiet. The live oaks stood like old friends along the sidewalk. A mockingbird sang in the magnolia tree. The same tree. The same song. But this time it did not feel wrong. This time it sounded like it was supposed to. Like the world was not ignoring the pain. It was simply reminding us that beauty does not stop just because we are hurting. It waits, patiently, the way good things do. The porch light hummed. The swing creaked. My daughter sat beside me with her mother's brooch on her collar, and the rest of her life waiting in front of her. And for the first time in weeks, I was not afraid of what came next.